Lights, camera, innovation. Walt Disney Studios chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform the movie-making process. Together, we kept a remote production hub in Hawaii and sync with a team in California to bring Lilo and Stitch to theaters this summer. This is picture-perfect collaboration. This is Walt Disney Studios with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Ah, yes, the weekend is here. Several of us may plan to take in a film or two over the weekend. Our shepherd on all things related to motion pictures is the one and only Debbie Schlussel. She also happens to be a conservative political commentator and pundit and an attorney. Debbie, what are you doing this weekend?
Sleeping.
Sleeping. That sounds fun.
They're catching up.
Fun. Yeah. Do you not get a lot of sleep during the week?
No, I do not.
Yeah. You have tough hours, with being an attorney mostly. Is that what keeps you up?
That, and then also sometimes I cannot go to movie screenings or there aren't for a particular movie, and I have to see a movie late at night like I did tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to ask you about movies in just a second, but I want to pick your brain if you're willing on a few other items in the news because these are pretty crazy times, and I certainly always appreciate your perspective.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, let's begin. Well, first, actually, I wanted to get your opinion on this P. Diddy situation. It's a pretty wild indictment that's alleging sex trafficking and racketeering. I'm curious what your take is on this whole Sean Combs situation, Debbie.
Well, I think it's interesting that it took this long for him to be charged because, remember, a lot of these stories have been swirling around for quite a bit to this point. And there have been all kinds of rumors about what he was up to and so on. And there are a lot of rumors about famous people with him in terms of Beyonce and Jay-Z and Justin Bieber. I think it's very, very interesting. I think that there's something severely wrong with P. Diddy or Diddy or whatever he's going by these days. I think a lot more is going to come out about the other people that were involved with him. But it seems that there was blackmail. There were these parties that he would have with them where a lot of things went on that if they weren't illegal, they were pretty darn close. And I think probably a lot of it was illegal. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, of course, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, and the burden is on the prosecution to prove these things. But it sounds like, first of all, he doesn't have bail, or bond, which is I'm not surprised by that because he probably could buy an island and fly away.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It's not looking good for him.
One of the things that people have asked me who've heard about the case is apparently he had something like 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lube. Where do you keep 1,000 bottles of baby oil? I mean, it strikes me as a lot of baby oil. I mean, they don't just have 200, 300. I mean, 1,000. It's a lot of baby oil.
That is a lot. And they said that was used at his parties and so on. I think he's going to end up doing a lot of time.
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see where this whole situation goes. At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight, talking with the one and only Debbie Schlussel. Debbie, I know you are a Michigan resident. You live in the Detroit area. There was an item in Talkers, which, as you know, but the audience may not, is sort of the industry publication for talk radio. And Kevin Adele, who is the owner of the station that we are on in Detroit, AM 910, the Superstation, apparently, according to both Talkers and a report in the Detroit Free Press, Kevin Adele is listing all of his media properties for sale as he is seeking to retire, including the station that we're being heard on right now in Detroit. Now, I'm just terrified that somebody's going to buy that station and put someone else on overnight. Is there any chance that you would consider putting together an ownership group to buy that station and just keep us on there, Debbie?
It's a very, very interesting idea. Probably no. This is not my business, but that is an interesting idea. I think Kevin Adele, by the way, my mother thought that she was one of his Hebrew teachers when he was younger, and I think it's true. And I also know one of his lawyers, a couple of his lawyers, and so on. He's a very smart guy. And he actually was very smart when he put together this station, AM 910, because for years while he owned this station, it was a black talk radio station. And it didn't really have very good ratings. I don't know anybody who listened to it. And then he saw as another superstation in the Detroit area, WJR, that had a lot of the conservative programming. Little by little got rid of it and went to local hosts that really, frankly, are very boring. And he was very smart to do this. He said, I'm not really conservative. My politics, are not reflected either way in this station, but it's great business for me because there are all of this conservative programming and people want that. And I'm going to fill the void left by WJR. And I think he has proven to be very smart doing this because the ratings of this station are much, much bigger than what they were.
Well, that's good. Hopefully we're playing a role in that. What did your mom have to say about his Hebrew school abilities?
I can't even remember what she said about that part, but I could just tell you he's a very smart guy. There was a lot of intra-family legal fighting with him and his, I think, sisters when his father passed away, and there was the station and other properties of the Adele family. He did win, and he's had a very storied life in the last couple of decades. I know that he owed a lot of money in taxes, and he sold one of his TV stations for a lot of money and used that to pay off his taxes. And it's interesting. I was not aware he was going to sell the rest of it. I know this. I always had some disdain for him because he has these gospel TV stations in Detroit, and he would he was befriending of Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, and he brought them here to the Detroit area and hung out with them. And I mean, I don't know how any Jewish person could hang out with those two reprehensible individuals.
Well, we're certainly happy that he keeps this show on the air, and hopefully whoever buys the station will keep this show on the air. If you're just tuning in, I'm Frank Morano. You're listening to The Other Side of Midnight, talking with Debbie Schlussel. Debbie, right before you got on, I was kind of bringing people up to date over this situation in North Carolina. I'm sure you've seen where this candidate, Mark Robinson, the current lieutenant governor, looks like he was found to be posting on a porn message board all sorts of things, including defending slavery, calling himself a black Nazi. Evidently, his email address was also found on Ashley Madison. He talked about some very kind of graphic pornography that he was into. He's saying that the story's not true. The National Republicans don't necessarily seem to know how to deal with this at this point. What's your take on this whole story, Debbie?
Well, when you've asked me several times when I've been on the show over the last few months about whether or not I will vote for Donald Trump, and I said no because of his tolerance and promotion of certain anti-Semitic individuals in the party as of late. And one of them is Mark Robinson, because I do believe this story to be true. Mark Robinson has a history of this kind of stuff. There was a race for governor. There was a primary. There were two other people in the primary. at least one of whom I think was a very viable candidate and would have won for governor of North Carolina if they had the Trump endorsement. But they didn't get it. Trump chose this guy, Mark Robinson, who had made all kinds of anti-Semitic and anti-Israel comments and openly was proud that he's a black neo-Nazi. And some of the things he said were absolutely despicable. And it just astounds me that this person got Trump's endorsement and therefore won. And he could become the next governor of North Carolina. I hope that because of all the things that have been coming out over the last several months, that he will be rejected. But it reminds me of when I was young and Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States and David Duke won a Republican primary.
Right, in Louisiana.
And Ronald Reagan made ads urging people to vote for the Democrat. Nowadays, that would never have happened. Instead, David Duke would have gotten Trump's endorsement, just like Mark Robinson did, despite his history of these kinds of comments. So I'm very, very troubled by what has happened in the Republican Party and Donald Trump himself with people like this and their embrace of them. It's very troubling to me.
So just so folks know, even if this story turns out to be untrue, and I agree with you, I think it's probably true given the email address and everything else here, but he has a public record of saying things that are what we'll call Nazi-esque?
Very much so, especially against Jews. He said that Black Panther, the movie, was a movie that was created and put together by Jews for money, and I think he used the word kikes or one of the other epithets. He has made other statements like that. He denied that the Holocaust happened. He also denied that 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. He's made other statements that are very, very similar to things David Duke would have said. He's a very disturbing person.
Wow.
And, of course, once he knew he was running for governor, he all of a sudden went to Israel and made all these trips and all of a sudden was Israel's best friend. I don't buy that for a second because of the history of things he has said about Jews and Israel. This guy is one of those chameleons that will just turn on a dime if it's going to get him more money, higher office, and more fame. And it's very disturbing to me to note that he could actually win despite all of these things.
Wow. Well, let's see what happens. All right. Since you mentioned Donald Trump, there's been a lot of concern about Trump and his association with Laura Loomer among Trump supporters, people like Lindsey Graham and others. Mainstream Republican supporters think that Laura Loomer, who has been a guest on this show, not in a while, who has been described as a conspiracy theorist. She's been described as an Islamophobe. She's, does a podcast. A lot of folks don't like that Trump is hanging around with her and especially didn't love that he brought her to New York on September 11th. What's your view of Laura Loomer in general, Debbie? And what do you make of the Trump association with Laura Loomer?
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tab.com. ABB.com.
Build professional skills this semester with Adobe Creative Cloud and create standout work both in and out of the classroom. Save big on professional creativity tools. Students get 65% off Adobe Creative Cloud, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, Acrobat Pro, and 20+ creative apps. No matter what project you're working on, Adobe Creative Cloud apps can help you take it to the next level. Visit adobe.com/student to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Factor. Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code listen50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code listen50. T's and C's apply.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
Well, she's a very despicable person. She said that 9/11 was an inside job. She actually forwarded a video on 9/11, I think, last year, and it might have been even recently. She forwarded a video and liked it that said 9/11 was an inside job, and to bring somebody that says that to the 9/11 memorial is disgusting. She has been very proud of her involvement in association with a neo-Nazi, Nick Fuentes, who also hates Jews and Israel and has denied the Holocaust and so on. It says all the Jews in America should die and or be deported and so on. And she's friends with him. And she has hung out with other and promoted other people just like that. She's a very despicable person. Now, she has claimed to be Jewish over recent years. Another anti-Semite who also claims he's Jewish, named Milo, who used to be with Breitbart.
Milo Yiannopoulos?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He recently posted a whole long thing on Twitter. They used to be friends. Now they're enemies. And he posted a whole long thing that she's not even Jewish, which that I believe. I don't believe she's Jewish, and I do believe she falsely claimed that she was. But regardless, she hung out with and promoted neo-Nazis like Nick Fuentes. And there's actually a video of her drunk on YouTube at some neo-Nazi convention dancing with this neo-Nazi guy. And it's just so embarrassing and disgusting.
All right. A lot of other items in the news. I'll save them for the next time that you're on, especially related to the Middle East. We could do a whole hour just on that, but there's a lot of movies that I want to get your opinion on. Tonight, my wife and I are scheduled to go to dinner, and then we're planning to go see Beetlejuice. You've seen it. First of all, before you give me your review of Beetlejuice, tell me, did you like the original Beetlejuice? And irrespective of your answer to that, what'd you think of the new one?
So I had never seen the whole original back to back. I'd seen snippets or when it was on TV, parts of it. So I actually watched the whole thing on my own before going to see the new one. So I thought the original one was not bad. I think it tried very hard to be quirky and avant-garde, and maybe it tried a little too hard, but it was not bad. It was okay. I do like Michael Keaton, so I found it entertaining. I know that Alec Baldwin's barely recognizable now from that.
My wife said the same thing because we rewatched it recently. It looks not only super handsome, but very thin.
Right, exactly. One of my friends said, he's put on several Alec Baldwins since then.
I'm in no position to judge anybody's weight, believe me.
Well, listen, he's a multimillionaire, could have trainers and all that. and actually is married to a trainer who's, not training him at all. Neither he nor Gina Davis are in the new one. Apparently he was busy fighting his gun charges when all this was going on, so they chose to keep him out of it. Also, they chose to keep out Jeffrey Jones, who was the father in the original, because, he had all these child porn convictions, or at least one, a pretty big one. So they have a claymation figure that is him that is conveniently eliminated, and you'll see how. I don't want to give it away. But I found it to be not bad, the sequel. It was a little over the top and a little, tries too hard, has a lot going on, isn't a great movie, but it was not bad. It's in the same spirit. If you liked the original, you probably like this. It's got a lot of eye candy, very high on style, low on story.
All right. I like it. I'm looking forward to seeing that. All right. Tell me about The Substance. So far, the only thing that I know about The Substance is that Demi Moore is nude in it, even though she's 60 years old. I don't know anything else about the plot or anything else. That's the only thing I've read about this picture.
All right. There's a lot of full frontal nudity of her and Margaret Qualley, the Nepo baby daughter of Andy McDowell, who plays kind of the younger self of Demi Moore. Demi Moore, like you said, 60 in this movie, plays 50, and it's actually believable because she looks that good. I actually enjoyed this movie for the first 60 to 70% of it. It's very different. It's very quirky. I liked the way it was, but in this case, not over the top quirky. It's got a very cool style to it. The story is interesting. She plays this very famous TV aerobics instructor who turns 50. And so the network president, Dennis Quaid, fires her because she's too old. And she gets in this car accident. When she's at the hospital, she meets this mysterious medical person who gives her the number of this place that could be the fountain of youth for her. It's a very, very weird, different movie. I do like weird, different movies. Sometimes they're just way over the top. This, I thought, was the right level. The music, just the way it's shot, it's just super cool. Except then it becomes gross and bloody and a mess, I would say, about 60 to 70% into it, and I was just done. But it was very, very interesting. All
right. Okay. Well, I mean, between that and the prospect of some Demi Moore nudity, it sounds like it might be worth checking out. All right. Tell me about this other film, which I've not heard of. It's another horror thriller, apparently. Never Let Go. What's this about?
So I hated this movie. This is with Halle Berry. It was just really bad. It wasn't thrilling at all. Just stupid. Halle Berry plays this mother who lives with her two young sons in the middle of this haunted forest, and they have to be tied to a rope that's attached to their house. They go into the forest, or these goblins / zombies are going to infect them, and they're going to have to be killed, and so on. And they're very starving because there's not a lot to eat, and they have to eat bark soup and so on, and lots of bugs, which is gross. It was just a dumb movie. I hated this. Skip this. Never Let Go. But there are some movies I actually really liked that I want to recommend.
All right. What do we have?
So one of them is a thriller starring James McAvoy, and everybody else is kind of a no-name, and it's called Speak No Evil. And so this is about, it's actually based on a Scandinavian movie that was remade, and it's these two couples that are on vacation in Italy, and they happen to meet at this resort. One is an American couple living in London, and the other is this Scottish English couple living in the English countryside. They become fast friends, and the British couple invites the American couple to spend the week at their countryside estate. And they're total strangers. What could go wrong? It's very thrilling. One thing I would say is, how does a Tesla last without being charged for days on end? That's the one thing. It didn't make sense to me, and I think if I had to get away from somewhere fast, I don't know what I would do. Would my Tesla work? Probably not. But otherwise, I thought this was a very, very thrilling movie. It's very tightly written. I wasn't bored for a second, and it was good.
Do you really drive a Tesla?
No, I would never drive a battery or electric operated car. I'm all into gas, and I think most Americans are, which is why all these auto companies are in trouble who are trying to pimp us on these things.
Yeah.
Another movie that I really liked is My Old Ass, and even though it's got a woke theme to it, it's actually very clever, very entertaining, but a little sad. And it's about this woman that I would say is about 18, 19 years old. Her family has a cranberry farm somewhere in the probably northeast of America, and she doesn't want to carry on the family tradition. She wants to move away and live her life. She's also a lesbian, so there are some very graphic lesbian scenes. But one night, she and her friends go to this island, and they take mushrooms. And they have these delusions, and hers is that she meets her 38-year-old self. And her 38-year-old self gives her advice about the future, and she's kind of disappointed with her 38-year-old self and where she is in life. And then she wakes up the next morning and finds that she actually did meet her 38-year-old self, and the number is in her cell phone, and the 38-year-old self calls her, and vice versa. And it's a very clever movie. I enjoyed it a lot. My Old Ass.
All right. So far we have Speak No Evil and My Old Ass that are worth seeing. Beetlejuice, if you like the first one, and at least 70% of The Substance. Anything else that people should check out this weekend, Debbie?
I think the Menendez story that's on Netflix is kind of interesting. I think it's a little over the top, but I thought that was interesting. Some of the other documentaries that I have been watching on Netflix that are popular, the story about what happened with Stephen McNair, the NFL player who was murdered. It's a very short 58 minutes, I think it is, documentary on Netflix. I thought was interesting. Some of the others like that. I think Netflix does a good job with documentaries when they're not trying to get off serial killers from their prison terms and murderers. Other than that, I think it's interesting.
Debbie, it is always a treat to talk with you. Thank you very, very much, and I'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you. Always a treat to be on. Thank you, Frank.
Have a good weekend. Enjoy that sleep, Debbie.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor, or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.